armed tensions escalated in Bangladesh as thousands of students armed with sticks and rocks clashed with the armed police in Dhaka this afternoon. The clash has left 7 people dead, including a policeman in the neighboring country. Bangladesh is seeing a rise in protests after the Bangladesh High Court reinstated a 30% government job quota for descendants of those who fought in the country's 1971 War of Independence. With internet out, schools and universities shut down, the country is in the middle of escalating tensions between the government and protesters who argue the policy only benefits the PM's supporters. The PM's comment referring to the protesters as Razakars, a term considered derogatory, did not sit well with the protesters and prompted violent clashes. In the country, Law Minister Anisul Haq said that the government was willing to talk to protesters after the Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, rejected the protesters' demands. The US Embassy in Dhaka has closed and has advised its citizens to avoid demonstrations and large gatherings. The Indian Embassy has also issued a similar advisory and cautioned Indian nationals against leaving the premises of their houses in the country. The Supreme Court of Bangladesh is due to hear the case on the 7th of August against the government's appeal to the High Court order. Till then, Prime Minister Hasina has asked for time from these students. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the show is Mr. Ravinder Sachdev, International Affairs expert. Major General G.G. Dwivedi, defense expert, also joins us on the show. Mr. Nazmul Haq Pradhan, former Member of Parliament, Panchagad, is also with us on the show. Thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation. General Dwivedi, I'll begin with you. Well, we've never seen something like this happen in Bangladesh, for that matter, in a long time. What would you contribute, or what would you suggest these disturbances are? And, the most important factor, I was reading an article about this as well, is this some sort of a proxy signal, from countries who are looking to foment trouble in Bangladesh?
Well, Vineet, first and foremost, it's a very sensitive issue, and 7 people have lost their lives. We share the grief with those families. But the point is, we need to see this whole thing in a perspective. Well, Bangladesh independence, War of Independence, which I had taken part as a young lieutenant, was a very historic one. And it was due to the Awami League and the those who laid down their lives and suffered that Bangladesh got independence. To that extent, well, compensation to the descendants is, I think, in order. But at the same time, we need to see what is the ground situation in Bangladesh as far as young people are concerned. Today, there is almost 8%, almost 12% unemployment, and about 800,000 young people, young graduates are unemployed. That is point number one. Secondly, the 30% is actually disproportionate, because as I was just looking at the statistics, about 56% seats are reserved. If 30% go to the descendant of the War of Independence, then there are 10% reservation for women, then there are for backward districts and add on. I think the students definitely are concerned, because unemployment being what it is, opportunities in Bangladesh are very limited, and therefore the student, I think their demands are genuine. Yes, some elements like Bangladesh National Party never took part in the election, they boycotted it, they like to use these opportunities, and certain other elements like to foment the trouble in Bangladesh. But the point is that this issue needs to be handled very pragmatically, so that the aggrieved students, their issues are addressed. So all I can say is, yes, have some reservation, but 30% is not, I think, is out of proportion. And the Supreme Court, as on 7 August, they are going to look at it. They must address the issue, because Bangladesh at this time cannot afford any kind of disturbances, because the country is in good progress. They are coming out well in all fields. And I think this type of disturbances can put the whole process in the reverse gear. And the government and the judiciary must address this in entirety. And the grievances of students must be addressed. Vineet.
Mr. Sachdev, how is this a very sensitive issue for a country like Bangladesh. Obviously, division on the lines of what is being reported right now, could, in fact, lead to bigger problems in terms of, these protests going on for days, and even problems escalating to such a large extent that it could lead to civil war.
I think, in general, Dwivedi has, of course, very rightly painted and given a landscape. The issue is, in a way, also look at anti-incumbency, right? Sheikh Hasina has been in power for how many years now? I'm missing maybe about 14 years or something like that, right? And the present elections or the latest elections or the lastest elections which were supposed to be held did not also see the participation by the opposition. So given the social dynamics of any developing country and the aspect of, jobs and unemployment and inflation is also very high in Bangladesh. Okay, all of that, unless it finds an outlet, it may be, it builds up and it erupts. So that's what could happen. Having a healthy functioning democracy maybe is helpful in that sense that, whatever the grievances are, somehow get, settled out, or some equilibrium gets established in the society or in the nation between, wherever things are. But in the absence and the way Sheikh Hasina has been running the government, definitely she's a great, friend for India and a strategic partner for India. But in some ways, the way she is running the government is going to lead Bangladesh down this route. There will be more and more protests coming up, one could anticipate.
Jal Dwivedi, what should India be doing, in order to assuage the situation if diplomatically India does have clout when it comes to Bangladesh?
Well, definitely India does have a clout, but at the same time, I think India has a policy not to interfere in the internal affairs of any country, or then especially in the neighboring countries. I think all that India can do is to first and foremost assure the Sheikh Hasina government that uh, we are behind them in any situation, and secondly, that good sense must prevail, and the young people, after all, they are the builders of future country, future of Bangladesh. Their genuine demand must be addressed. But the point is, Vineet, that this 30% willy-nilly is going to give unfair advantage to the descendants of War of Independence, because most of them were from Awami League, because Awami League was the one which spearheaded this complete War of Independence. So therefore, at the face of it, it is unfavorable advantage to certain segment of the Bangladesh society. At the same time, I think we need to also ensure that we are not seen to be actually in any way trying to be part of this whole issue. Rather, we should be seen as as a neighbor who are trying to dissuade this situation and assuring that this situation does not take a violent turn. And as you rightly said, that this could also be some kind of a civil war, because Bangladesh has seen such situations. And the young people, I know in 1971, this whole movement of War of Independence was spearheaded from University of Dhaka. So I think the young people must be, put at ease, and their concern must be addressed. And I'm sure the Supreme Court of Bangladesh will come with a very viable and I think balanced decision, so that the students are not, affected largely, and also at the same time, those who suffered in the War of Independence are also given certain amount of recognition by small scale reservation, but not at 30%. I think India need to wait and watch and assure the government of Bangladesh that we'll ensure that from our side, they have all the support. Vineet.
Mr. Nazmul Haq Pradhan is also with us on the program. Mr. Nazmul Haq, appreciate you joining us, sir. I hope you can hear me. What do you make of these protests, and what can the government do? The Supreme Court is going to be deciding this, but that day is still far away.
Thank you very much to invite me in this program. Really, we are facing a lot of problems. This government is running for more than 3 terms. It is now 16 years running government. And there is a huge question about the elections, the one-party election. The opposition did not participate in elections, But the things, whenever any logical demand raised against government turned it as a razakars, as a anti-freedom fighters. And this terminology, governments, every time their government chanting this terminology, whenever for any demands. And this now the slogan raised by the general students, it is not new. Last 15 years they raised the slogan about 30% quota of the freedom fighters. Now the freedom fighters has no son, as the quota is for their grandsons. It is the main questions of the general students. Number two, last 15 or 16 years, in recruitment process, there is a huge corruptions, monetary corruptions. Even though in the freedom fighters list, there is a corruption also. So for these things, the general masses, the general students chanting slogan to reform this quota and to eliminate all this bad, those are not really freedom fighters, to exclude them from the list. But government is not paying heed to their words. Always, whenever the slogan, government says that they are anti-freedom fighters, they are razakars. And that is the main problem. Whenever a logical slogan raised against government termed them as a razakars, as a anti-freedom fighters. And this time, these slogans deeply hurted the general students of the Bangladesh. So from center to periphery, all students not only raise their slogans, they raise their hands, they raise their chest to face bullets of the governments. And Dhaka University, Dhaka College, Medical College, Engineering University, and Eden University College, Bodhnasa, all colleges targeted by the general masses and rushed the powerful ruling party, those who are from 15 years, those who are pressing the general students from their demands. This is the irony of fact that it is for the first time in Bangladesh history, the government eastern wing, they just ran away from the campus to save their life. Though the government is trying to face this movement by police and some hooligans. They are carrying some hooligans in pickups, giving some sticks, giving some bombs. They are doing these things, which is really ill fit for our country. If government goes for reviews the decision, government should talk earlier, but government did not talk earlier. Now, government today, just sometimes some hours back, on behalf of Prime Minister, Law Minister told in press conference that government is willing to talk with the general students, those who are involved in anti-quota movements. But the general student says their leaders, the killings, they should withdraw the BGP and the police forces from the deployed areas, and killings should be addressed by the government to have some judiciary that is committees. In that way, it can be solved. But government is not. Government is using their hooligans, and so that it has been spread from center to periphery. The whole area, Bangladesh, Dhaka, Mymensingh. If you go through the news of the Bangladesh televisions, you will get all informations. Everywhere, the students come down from the halls, colleges, schools. So it's a big movement. Really, it is a mini upstarts. You can tell it mini upstarts. In Bangladesh, it is 69 movement. I was one of the school participants 69 movements. I've seen it now, and I led the 90s movement as a leader. But today I have seen from morning to these things. It is upstarts of the students community throughout the whole Bangladesh. Now, government should consider the things properly. If government remain in the same position, I think government would have faced mass problem. As because government is totally alienated from the masses. As because government and the government MPs, they are very much confined with their own interest, with their own relatives. And government is also alienated from his party also. So there are some privileged people chanting slogan for the government. But it is reality, it is fact that the government general supporters, general workers, it's not with government. So the government is now lonely, very lonely. He is depending on the police forces, trying to face the movement, which is absurd, which is not possible really. If government come into sense, I think government should immediately government should
Right, but let me also
release
rope in
all
Jalal
the
Dwivedi
arrested.
into this conversation. Jalal Dwivedi, even if you compare this, to other countries who've had quota systems, including in India, isn't this a bizarre case where a quota is being allocated on the basis of history that was etched out in 1971 on the basis of who participated in that war of independence?
Absolutely, Vineet. I think as it has been brought out, that it is not their sons, it is not their grandsons or possibly great grandsons who are going to be beneficiary. And similar situations have been in India where those who participated in the freedom movement or freedom struggle in India as well, that they have been also benefiting fourth generation, fifth generation. So therefore, I think they have to put an end because there is a endless, seamless advantage will be taken, which is not fair. At the same time, I am fully with the Mr. Nazarul Haq that government must listen to the young people because they cannot muscle their way through. Force is not the answer, and heavy-handedness must be avoided because this situation can turn further volatile. And at the same time, students have genuine concern. They have the genuine demand. How can you have 30% quota for those who are now long past to have the benefit because it is not the next generation or next generation. So I think that government needs to take a view of it, calm down, get the students, back into the institutions. And I'm sure judiciary must take a very pragmatic view. And this is also, I think, lesson for others, especially in our country also, because we need to be very pragmatic. While affirmative actions are required, but then there has to be limit. They cannot be seamlessly. You can't keep breaching the limit, and that situation can turn violent in any country. So, as a well-wisher of Bangladesh, I feel that this situation should be nipped in the bud and government must calm down, listen realistically, and address the concerns of the students, which are very genuine. Vineet.
Mr. Sajdev, is there a midway that you see here? Because this seems to be, in a sense, a dictatorial move.
Two things, Vinay, thank you. One is, I think the way ahead is for Sheikh Hasina to kind of, reform the governance of Bangladesh. One, this is one topic today, issue today, right? Tomorrow there'll be some other issue. The point is, if there's a kind of pressure cooker cooking away some or the other issue. But coming back to the quota issue, I think the quota issue has been further exacerbated by the fact that, okay, there's 30% quota, but in this, who is eligible for the quota are mostly and only people from the ruling elite. Okay, and as our colleague from Bangladesh was also saying that, the lists are not clear that who is eligible or not, but that entire list of those entire names are heavily weighed towards those who are the supporters of the party. I mean, people may have fought in the 71 war who may not be with the party now or their descendants, but they could be claiming. So that's another dimension to it, that within the quota also, the preference, if not the preference, the way it is gamed that only folks or the elite or, the networks of the ruling party get and gain access to it. So that's the other thing. So how this can be solved, probably we don't know, but maybe by some give and take. Here it means that maybe some rationalization or some Supreme Court judgment, etc. Maybe that will cool things down a bit. But in the overall sense, what I see is that if not this issue, and this issue may not go away, issue may keep simmering, up and down, there could be some other issue because, that cocktail is there. The cocktail of unemployment, inflation, jobs, whatever else you may say, and no democratic expression or participation. Sheikh Hasina, with all due, her friendship with us, is ruling apparently in a quite a dictatorial manner. Okay, completely blocking out the opposition and even roughshotting them over. Okay, now the opposition is also, in fact, I mean, opposition, maybe some of them deserve it because some of them or several of them are very radical, also radical Islamists, right? So that's the conundrum out there. But Sheikh Hasina has to figure out a way to, kind of sideline the radical elements, but work with the overall other, if not opposition, but other sections of society. Uh, as a nation, that's her challenge. She has to reform, I would say, or how to reform. In fact, as we were talking, I was just thinking amongst world leaders or countries, if there could be some parallels, where leaders, strong leaders, ruling solely exclusively for over 15 odd years, okay, have transformed themselves slow by slow and their nation into a more harmonious country and progressive country. I'm still searching. I'm thinking right now.
All right. Jal Dwivedi, concluding thoughts from you, and then Mr. Sachdev, on how this issue is likely to impact Bangladesh, maybe in the short run, but it is something that should be kept short. It should not go on for a long time.
Well, Vineet, I sincerely hope, as a well-wisher of Bangladesh, that this issue is addressed in entirety and a very pragmatic view is taken. The concerns of the students are addressed, and it should not be seen as an unfair advantage to one particular party. It should not be politicized. And to that extent, I think the government, the judiciary, and also the student must be sure that they do not end up damaging their own country. And my last watchword is that Bangladesh at this stage cannot afford this type of unrest or violence because it needs stability to progress, and such type of instance can derail the whole progress and bring back the country into some kind of anarchy. And I only hope and pray the divine sees the light for all those who are affected, and this issue is addressed in a harmonious manner, and no unfair advantage is given to anyone, and lastly should not be politicized. Vineet.
Mr. Sachdev, concluding
Sorry,
thoughts?
yeah, absolutely, very much there because I mean, if we were to look ahead, the scenario is not very rosy or it's a bit cloudy actually, right? And there we have also in the background, people who are looking to fish in troubled waters, quote unquote, say and say whatever China, it has its own interest. It'd be happy to forbid some troubles. Here in the opposition party, which is there, they have apparently some links, or at least some sections of them, with the Jamaat-e-Islami groups in Pakistan. Right. So there will be, of course, there are always, vectors or interests who are positioning themselves. So that's happening out there. And she has been in power for about 14 to 15 years. So once again, anti-incumbency can become huge. Okay. But that is assuming an election. Now they had an election just now, which was not held. The opposition didn't participate. Many countries, in fact, the US and all, did not even, I think, recognize the elections. But anyway, they went ahead. So the next election is now 5 years away. So she has to manage this 5-year period by letting loose some valves and letting some pressure dissipate. Okay, else things are heading, I think, seriously, and it's a matter of worry for India, I would say, without doubt.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.